tonight. Alright, I'm sure this is all y'all's favorite thing, is watching a flashing screen, but bear with me here. This is one of my most asked questions on Instagram, and it is what gear ratio I'm running and what gear ratio I recommend. Now, if we go over here, my Instagram, gears, says all the information right there. But for those of you that can't comprehend that, let's do a little breakdown here. All right, so again, I apologize for the flashing screen. I was going to do this all on a whiteboard. I just don't have enough room on a whiteboard to do this all at once. So try to ignore the flashing screen. But it's commonly asked, what gear ratio do you run, what tire size do you run, and what do you recommend? So let's start off with factory gear ratio is 373, and transmission ratio is 716. Now, I don't remember exactly what a manual is, but 6th gear in a manual is fairly close to the automatic. So you could just cross this information over for a manual also. So factory gear ratio, as you can see, is 373 to 1. That's the final driver, the axle gear ratio. Factory tire size is 31. Vehicle speed, I'm doing everything at 60. You guys can figure it out from there. Also, if you ever want to look at this calculator yourself, I will put a link in the description. It's on crawlpedia.com. It's a great website. So as you can see, engine RPM at 60 miles an hour in 5th gear with the stock setup is 1737 RPM. That's pretty close. I feel like it's a little bit closer to like 1900 RPM, 1800 when you're actually driving factory, but it's been a long time since I've driven a factory FJ. So that's our control, that's our baseline, is 1737 RPM. Alright, so I'm basing this off 35s. I do have some information in here on 33s. Don't want to take offense to this, but I do not want to put too much light on 33s. Everyone should have 35s. So this is with the factory gear ratio on 35-inch tires, 60 miles an hour with the same transmission ratio. You get 1,538 RPMs. So now if we can compare that to our control, you're about 200 RPM less running on the freeway. At 60 miles an hour, that almost puts this gear inoperable. So if you're driving in 4th, which I usually did, you're talking 2,148 RPMs, which, remember this is what I used to make my decision on what gear ratio I was going to go with. So just remember that real quick. All right, let's calculate that back to what it was. All right, next, this is 456 gears with 33-inch tires at 60 miles an hour in 5th gear is 1,995 RPMs. So you are about 200 RPMs over stock, a little more, 250 RPMs or so over stock. So if you're going to go, if you're on 33s and you're not going to ever go any bigger, I highly recommend going 456s. Don't let that extra RPM concern you, and I'll show you why at the end of the video here. Just watch the whole thing to get all the information. Alright, this is 456s on a 35-inch tire at 60 miles an hour in 5th gear, you get 1,881 RPM. Now, you're not that much more, or you're not that much less than 33s, I should say. You're talking 100 RPMs less than 33s, and you're like, close to 200 RPMs over 150 RPMs over factory. So keep that in mind. So if you're going 4.56s on 35-inch tires, you're a little bit better than factory, but not really. Now, again, keep in mind the 4th gear thing on stock gears. So you're 1,800 RPMs with 4.56s. If you're ever planning, if you have 35s and you're like, I might want to go back down to 33s, you only hit the forest roads kind of thing, 4.56s is probably okay. But remember what I'm about here, more about crawling and pushing it to the limits versus overlanding. So if you're staying more to the forest roads and stuff, but you want 35s, that extra ground clearance, or for whatever reason, if you're just running forest roads, 33s is more than enough. Look in this area. 4.56s on 35s will probably be okay. All right. 488s on 35s, 60 miles an hour at the 716 5th gear. You get 2,013 RPMs. Now, if you wanted this to be a little more accurate, you could go 40 or 34.66 or 86, whatever they are. But this way, it's even all the way across the board. And before I get more into my explanation here, 488s on 33s is 2,135 RPMs, which is pretty up there. Now, why I am a believer in 488s on 35-inch tires, for multiple reasons. 37s are becoming the new 35s. So you're over that stock gear ratio, and you'll still have a decent crawl ratio, but go back to 35s. So you get 2,013 RPMs potentially on 48s, 35s, 60 miles an hour at in 5th gear. Now, remember when I said earlier that I ran 4th gear most of the time on stock gears. I was on stock gears for about 2 months before I re-geared. So most of the time I was in 4th gear, even on the freeway. Now on the freeway at 60, 65 miles an hour in 4th gear, I was getting like 16, 17 miles per gallon. And it didn't feel like I was working the truck too hard. It rarely ever downshifted, and rarely ever unlocked the torque converter. So I felt like I was in a spot where it was more than enough longevity-wise, and gave me plenty of torque. So that being said, that's one of the main reasons I went with 488s, because it got me close to that RPM in 5th gear, which means the crawl ratio is way lower. Now, this is where it's going to get a little more technical here. Alright, so here's where it gets a little more technical, and move the calculator in here. Depending on massive rotation and whatnot, I haven't done a lot of actual math research on this, but it's very common and very commonly known in drag racing that 1 pound of rotating weight can be equal to 5 to 10 pounds of mass vehicle weight. So actual weight of the vehicle, which is something to really, really keep in mind when you're picking out tires and when you're picking out rims. That's why I'm a proponent of 16-inch F5s, SCS F5s, and Cooper STT Pros in a 315 is one of the best combos, because STTs are light and F5s are light. Now, rim weight isn't that big of a deal. All right, a 31-inch KO2 is like 42 pounds. These are just numbers I'm pulling off the top of my head. So if you want to do the math yourself, go for it. So a KO2 is like 42 pounds, and an STT Pro is like 68 pounds in a 35. So if you go 42, that's 32. 42 minus 62, you get a negative 20. But, so you're talking 20 more pounds. Okay, 20 pounds not that big of a deal, right? So if you go, 20 times 4, you're at 80 pounds. Now on the low side, times 5 pounds, you just added 400 pounds of static weight to your vehicle. Okay? Again, this is my opinion. This isn't 100% the most accurate thing in the world, but that kind of gives you an idea as that you can be adding a feeling of 400 pounds to the vehicle. If you want to have an idea what that's like, get two of your buddies, put them in the back, drive around. Like that's your extra weight right there. That's just upsizing tires. If you're planning on regearing, most people here have gone through the bumper thing, the winch thing, skid plates. Now, my truck is a ResFab 3-hoop bumper. Highly recommend them. They're awesome bumpers, super good quality, and I have winched a ton of weight. I winched up a super steep hill with a 4Runner that could not move, completely dead, 4th gen, up a hill in the shale where I was spinning all fours locked, on a snatch block from the winch to the tree where the snatch block was, then back to the bumper to the shackle mount, pulling us both up the hill, and it did not move at all. I highly recommend it. Bumper's a little heavier, then you add the winch, you get a little more weight. I have full skids, including the diff skid. Then I start adding in tools, high lift, what else? I have a small chainsaw, just a bunch of other camping things or things that I usually take with us when we're wheeling, tools, etc. Recovery gear, compressors, awning that I usually have on there, sliders, just a ton of things that add more vehicle weight. And I just did a really quick breakdown on Excel. I think a factory FJ Cruiser weighs 4,300 pounds, and my FJ Cruiser, so factory, is 4,300 pounds, I'm assuming. I think it's right in that area. And so I just added some weights in here. My truck scaled in at like 5,325 or something with me in it. So 5,325 was without camping gear and stuff, I think. I can't exactly remember. It might have been loaded, but you get the idea. So right now, my truck weighs right around 5,100 without me in it. So if we go plus 5,130, we get 5,530 pounds. So now your FJ has just become over 1,000 pounds over factory vehicle weight. So you're moving an extra 1,000 pounds around all the time once you get all the gear and everything into it, which is not what they're made for, if this makes sense. Not what Toyota had in mind when they put 373s to that ratio in it. So knowing this, okay, fuel mileage out of your head, because once you've already added this weight, that is your number one cause in fuel mileage decrease. That in tires, like tire width ratio, whatever. So you're 5,300 pounds or 5,530 pounds, right? Potentially. So take that into serious consideration when you're deciding. If you want to know what that feels like, you have a completely stock FJ Cruiser. Put any like 5x10 size cargo trailer back there. That's gonna get you the closest to that. Put a couple buddies in it, drive it around. It will feel a lot different. So if you ever plan on, if your FJ is gonna have weight and stuff in it, keep this in mind, that it's gonna be heavy. So that's where my decision to go with 488s was, because if you ever go with a trailer or anything on top of that, you're adding more and more weight and strain on the transmission and drive train. With a trailer on the back, an overland style trailer that I've taken camping several times with 488s, I can drive in 5th gear, fully loaded, on everything but hills. Once I get into the hills, I'm normally shifted into 3rd. My transmission rarely ever gets over 185 degrees. So keep in mind all of that when you're choosing your gear ratio. So my final answer is, if you're just going to stay with 33s and you're never going to upsize tire to 35s, and even if you have a little bit of weight and you might plan on towing a trailer, 4, 5, 6s are just fine. If you're going to go 35s ever, and you are going to stay 35s and run 35s, go 488s, because with that extra weight, and if you ever decide to tow a trailer, anything like that, you get that RPM that you need on the freeway. I drove from Washington to Moab, Utah, and back, and the whole trip, minus the wheeling, I averaged like 17.9 miles per gallon. So that's something you're going to have to take into consideration. So 48s with 35s, or 4, 5, 6s with 33s. Thank you guys for watching. I seriously appreciate it. I'm trying to get this whole YouTube thing off the ground and under control, or off the ground and out of control. I don't know. I really enjoy doing these videos, and there's a lot of knowledge that doesn't seem to be out there, especially in the Toyota community. So I would love to give you guys my opinion on everything. Please like, share, and subscribe these videos. Word of mouth is like the best way. And if you have any questions or anything like that, message me on Instagram. It's the best way to get a hold of me. The TeamBroverland email is also attached to the Instagram account. Feel free to hit that up. Again, thank you guys for watching, and have a good rest of your day or evening or whatever it is that you're doing.